What's up? I'm Dieter. That's
I'm
Hutch.
Hutch.
This is Dieter and Hutch. Jake, they said they don't want me no more. They said they don't want us.
I really like the idea of John Lynch calling Brandon Aiyuk and be like, "Hey, buddy, how's it going? We don't want you. Don't come to camp. We don't want you around."
$6 million, but we decided that a better price is zero.
Right.
Totally normal NFL team behavior.
You led the NFL in yards per reception, but don't come back. We're good.
You're our starting quarterback that we're going to pay $60 million to's favorite target. But, we saw Ricky Pearsall's mini camp, and, well, this is just something we have to explore in full. Deebo Samuel dogging it for the first couple days, really made us think about our priorities. And it's not you, it's us, really.
Right.
If you don't know what the hell we're talking about today's bit of tomfoolery in the internet space, which might be a redundant or even oxymoronic statement because all things on the internet space, including this show, are inherently tomfoolery.
That's right.
But for some reason, Brandon Aiyuk, 49ers wide receiver and soon to be very rich man, even if he just plays the 5th-year option, that's a lot of money, $14 million something dollars, decided to go on to the TikTok machine. And, we'll just play it here where he posted this.
Bro, look in the cam, bro. Look the cam.
He got me vlogging this shit.
Bro, what? They said they don't want me back. I swear.
Oh my.
Yes, I'm sure, again, John Lynch said that we don't want him back. It could, however, be him being told that he can no longer shop at the Marshalls he was TikToking about a month ago. There's just a lot of just good vibes off of that. And Jake, I got to be blunt with you here, man. Like, I lost some pretty serious respect for Brandon Aiyuk today.
It's pretty cringy.
It's super cringy.
Because it feels like he's a guy who wants respect.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really, but like he's not coming up with good ways to go about commanding that. And so he's being like surreptitious and, he's like, the Deebo thing, the Deebo trade request didn't work out on his end. I mean, it worked out. He got paid,
That's right.
But like Aiyuk hasn't requested a trade yet. So it's like, I don't know. It's just, to me, it's from where I see it is like Aiyuk doesn't have a lot of leverage. So what he's learned and what a lot of wide receivers do is they go to social media because that's how you stir stuff up. But it doesn't.
Someone's
to me,
going to say something positive to me on social media. Like I need to let my discontentment be heard by somebody. And
I don't know.
I need to curry favor with what, like the worm-brained of society? Like, what possible positive outcome could this have other than jackasses like us talking about Brandon Aiyuk today?
I don't know, man, because it's tough because, and I think something to remember is like whenever I see stuff like this, I go back on like our interactions with players in the locker room, and that's one thing that like Kyle always, whenever this stuff happens, he's like, yeah, I don't care. He's like, if I talk to the guy and he says something to me, I go off that. But any of that other shit, like, I don't care.
Yeah.
So that's sort of like when I interact with Aiyuk in the locker room, he's always been like pretty under the radar guy. Like,
totally,
is pretty earnest, pretty honest.
The notion of him being a diva is just kind of laughable. Like, he does not seek attention. He does not want attention. He's pretty. I found him to be a good person to chat with, but that took a lot of work on my end to just build up a little bit of rapport, just to be able to shoot the shit with him a little bit. And again, I say that like it kind of hurts me to say like I lost a little bit of respect for him because I thought that he was going to play this thing straight. And let's be very clear about this. Brandon Aiyuk can do whatever the fuck he wants, man.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter.
He's in the middle of a contract negotiation. This is still America. If he feels like this helps his contract negotiations, I don't see it. I don't think anybody sees it, but I can't tell him not to do it. But my
Right.
point is merely like this is some weird passive aggressive teenage nonsense, and having a fairly established idea of what Brandon Aiyuk the person is to whatever degree I've gotten to know him, which is 1% of the full man. But I feel like I have a decent enough read on the guy's personality, having chatted with him enough and having honest, earnest interactions about things other than football. Like this is beneath him. And I get it. We're in the middle of a weird, angry back and forth with him and the 49ers, and the Niners are sons of bitches to negotiate against. I get all that. It's one thing when it's a Debo trade request or Debo acting out or all these things. There's a lot of ways you could do this, and I'm not telling Brandon Aiyuk that he can't do this. So clearly he can, and clearly he did. But should he? Because all this is doing, I don't think this is helping his money in any way, and all this is doing is making folks like me, not that it matters, look a little differently on him, and the fan base look differently on him, and I think that could be a real issue here.
The only way I see this is like a tactical move, because I'm trying to think of a way that this is like
what's the tactic?
So
what's the gambit here, sir?
Solely to get John Lynch and come out and say, no, we don't want to trade. Even though he said that before, so it doesn't really make any sense. Like, they've stated on the record how much they like him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think, I don't know. I think it's just being online messes with your head a little bit. Honestly, I think, being frustrated and there's nothing going on, and so it's like, I don't know. Maybe let me stir the pot a little bit. There's no real way I think this helps his case, and honestly, I don't think it really affects things either way. But it does give people who like the track record of the 49ers for the last 3 off seasons has been, this is going to be a pain in the ass. It's going to linger. And that's kind of where this is headed. But they usually, almost always, get a deal done. And that's what I've expected from the start. And this one's probably going to get annoying. But in terms of like putting a video out where he's like, they don't want me, it doesn't work because it doesn't make sense, because they obviously do want him.
Yeah.
But they just don't want him at the price that he wants, which is like, one, for the record, I'll always be on the side of millionaires over billionaires 1,000 times out of 1,000. Like, I'm on the player side.
Can I be against both of them?
Yeah, I think you can. I think that's completely fair to be like, all right.
It's all a pretty blurry line for us thousandaires over here. Like, I understand what you're saying, but just because you are the lesser of two evils doesn't make you virtuous. Like, that's a stance that I've always found to be short-sighted and naive. And I'm not implying that you were deep, but like, there's some people who make that their personality.
Right.
And it's like, what are we really talking about here?
And so what I will say is, like, again, the NFL, despite all the rule changes, is still a brutal sport where players are doing irreparable damage to their brains. And there's a level of knowing that, and there's also a level of sort of ignoring that for as long as you can until your career's over. But when it comes to contract negotiations, you
shit gets real fast.
You can only bet on getting one chance. You can only really bet that you're going to get that bite of the apple one time. And so for Aiyuk to be like, I'm going to play out this 5th-year option and then try and get it, you don't know what's going to happen. You could tear an ACL, anything could happen. It's the NFL. It's brutal. Like, and if he goes off and has a great year, great, but that's delaying the contract another year. So I get his frustration, but in terms of manifesting it, I don't understand how this helps.
The 49ers don't need to do anything. The 49ers have the leverage because the 49ers can walk away. And as you just said, Brandon Aiyuk, for all of the positives that he has going for him in this situation, which is that he is very young for being an unrestricted free agent, that he is probably a player who hasn't played his best football yet, that he is the number one option unquestionably for a quarterback that the 49ers have pledged the franchise to, for all the things that he does have going his way, and he has a multitude of them. The 49ers are still the only one who can walk away from this negotiation in earnest. Brandon Aiyuk they can just say you're going to play your 5th-year option. And between the fines that Brandon Aiyuk has already picked up by not showing up to minicamp, which I get, and the fines that he would pick up by not playing out the preseason the way, or training camp in the preseason, as Nick Bosa just did. If he were to replicate the Nick Bosa model of holdout without getting the contract because the 49ers walked away, that's $2 million out of his pocket. That's not getting refunded. The only way that gets refunded is if he signs a new contract with the 49ers and they waive it. And that's the cost of doing business. There's your signing fee. They waive that. If you don't, they're going to hold on to that $2 million. Fine. And they're going to say, first off, they're taking away a game check for every preseason game you miss. So that's $850K roughly for Brandon Aiyuk on the 5th-year option. And we're looking at a very serious amount of money, $40,000 a day in training camp. It's going to get real hairy. And so I think Brandon Aiyuk is going to show up. Maybe not immediately.
Do a hold in.
He'll probably do a hold in. And let's be clear about this, because we got to think about next steps, because nothing has changed. This is the exact same thing. We just have a new foothold in stupidity. And again, he might have, who knows when this video was taken, whatever. Like, why is Jaden Daniels watching a 49ers game? There's a lot of questions that I have.
They're tight from Arizona State, but still, it's just weird.
When I say that Brandon Aiyuk's young, he's 26 years old. He's talking to a guy who was his quarterback at Arizona State, who's a rookie. 5 years. He's been in the league for 5 fucking years, and this is a guy who is talking to his former quarterback, who is his peer in age. Again,
that's always bizarre to watch some Arizona State clips and Jaden Daniels throwing him the ball.
And good luck with all of that. Regardless, it's a good question. We'll get to it in a second. When we talk about next steps, I think it would be very telling if Brandon Aiyuk decided to hold in, because if Brandon Aiyuk decides to hold in, that tells me unequivocally that he does not think he's getting a new contract from the San Francisco 49ers this year. If he decides to hold out for an extended period of time, I'm talking more than a week or two. If we get to that first preseason game and he's holding out, I think it lends itself to the notion that he, in fact, thinks he's getting the new contract, because the fines would start to become so prohibitive at that point that he's got to think, they're not, I'm getting a new contract, so they're going to wipe away these fines. But if he's holding in, he's not getting fined. He's come up with a hamstring or something. And I'm sure the 49ers, say what you will about the 49ers and how, dickish they are to negotiate against, which is their prerogative and has worked very well for them. The other guys have gotten paid before Brandon Aiyuk, but they would work with him on a hold-in. They would find the injury with him. I don't question that. I don't think it would get so contentious that they would say, actually, you need to practice. But if he was holding in, that's again, a pretty clear sign that he doesn't think he's getting a new contract, because the only way that those fines from missing training camp, missing preseason games are reasonably coming off the books is if he has a new deal. So something to think about there. Should we reference here Cadmus threes, which is more valuable? It's a question from our sicko.
I think it's a little bit of a loaded question, but I get what you're getting at.
No, we're nothing but loaded questions here. Which is more valuable? Debo team leadership and physical versatility, or Aiyuk's precision and quiet locker room presence? If Debo were healthy for 17 games, which, and if I were the king of Denmark, he sure seems like Kyle's premier wide receiver weapon. There's a couple of different ways I want to go with this. Let me get your first thoughts on it, Jake.
So, the premise that Debo is a more valuable leader. I guess he runs out of the tunnel, and energy wise, I think Debo's energy when he's at his best is infectious, and that's how he leads. I don't think he's this team's leader, but he leads by example when he's playing well, so that's fair. Aiyuk's route precision, quiet locker room presence, I don't know.
There's something to be said for being a vocal leader. There's value to that.
That's
if you had to say vocal leaders of the team, it's Brock, it's Fred. And then if you had to go to this kind of tertiary or secondary options, it's Trent Williams and Debo Samuel.
I was going to say there genuinely is something to the fact that they come out of the tunnel every single game. Football, you feed off energy. You have to go in there being completely unafraid. And when you have Trent Williams and Debo leading you out there, that's real. It's not real, but it is,
there's no human on the planet that can go on. Maybe Christian McCaffrey can go onto a field without deluding himself that he's setting that he's risking his life, but everyone
I
else
mean,
needs to get
he's a
amped.
smaller guy. He needs to have some level of delusion.
Totally.
So what I will say to this question is Debo at his best, at his healthiest, is probably the most important weapon they have on offense. Like,
Mhm.
at least going off of 2021, McCaffrey is probably taken that mantle now, but Debo's flexibility, what he does with the ball in his hands, the way he energizes people, the way he's genuinely impossible to tackle
Yeah.
on the first try, that's like irreplaceable. The problem is he can't separate from man coverage. He's not really like he doesn't really run routes.
Right.
It's sort of just
I'm over
flowing to a
here.
spot.
Yeah.
He doesn't, when you watch him do like cheat motion, like he's like jogging a lot of times, whereas like I just watched
You
the
telling
Super
me
Bowl
he's
tape today.
cheat?
Like it's not really working when you just sort of jog and then slowly run upfield.
Yeah.
But in terms of like actual receiver play, Ayuk is much more valuable. So
No question.
in terms of who's more valuable, I think it depends on Debo's health, which if Debo is healthy 17 games, I would say Debo. But he's rarely going to be healthy 17 games unless the 49ers figure out a way to keep him healthy. He's in great shape, take a little bit of the load off him, which maybe they do. I think it's a good question. And I think it's one where if Ayuk continues to hold out, that's been like posited, like let both those guys, go for it this year and see who's healthy and see at the end of the year who decides to win the second contract.
Yeah, I have long made the case that Brandon Aiyuk is far more valuable to the 49ers because of the quarterback. And with Brock Purdy, someone who wants to push the ball down the field, someone who wants to push it to the sidelines, you need a true X receiver. That this is
Agreed.
this is a better encapsulation of Kyle Shanahan's offensive ideal because he has the next Matt Ryan, he has the next whomever, good quarterback with Brock Purdy, someone who can actually understand what's happening in the offense and push it anywhere he wants. But you mentioned the Super Bowl, and this is something you and I were back and forth on, and we'll get into this a little bit later on in the show. You showed in the Super Bowl a couple of clips where you wondered if Brock or the Chiefs had put a limitation on deep throws, where basically the Chiefs did not guard specifically Brandon Aiyuk in this case
there were
after about 25, 30 yards.
Yeah, there were a couple of plays where like 30 air yards down the field, they would just kind of like let Ayuk go, where if Brock had thrown it, Ayuk's wide open for a touchdown. So anyway.
And there's no empirical answer as to what was going on. Was it a Brock issue? Was it a 49ers offense issue? Was it a Chiefs mistake? Like it didn't work out. And looking back on it now, all you have is this, lump of regret. If you're saying, I'm sure Kyle Shanahan was just punching his iPad watching this thing back. But it got me thinking about the 3 games the 49ers lost mid-season last year. And they lost those games because, yes, Trent Williams wasn't there, but Deebo Samuel also wasn't there. And in the Super Bowl, I think we have to make the case that Deebo Samuel was not there. He was gone. It was over. And I think that if you put those 4 games together and you were to say, what's the similarity here? It's that Kyle was unable to adapt the offense to fit anybody else, that it was too Deebo-centric. And if Deebo isn't 100% or whatever 100% looks like to where he can do the full complement to Deebo Samuel thing. So whatever percentage that is, if he's not there, if he's below the threshold, then the 49ers offense can't function because it's overly reliant on Deebo Samuel to function. And that's an error on Kyle's part because you cannot have an offense be centered around one player that much, even though this offense is inarguably less focused around Deebo Samuel this past season than it had been in prior seasons to that. But that's the nature. It was still too Deebo, and that Kyle couldn't pivot off of Deebo and turn it into a Christian McCaffrey or Brandon Aiyuk. And I think that's been, if I think back, and again, this is a bit of projecting here, but if you look at all the things that Kyle Shanahan has done this offseason, and if you view them through the lens of we are divesting ourselves from Deebo Samuel, specifically on the field, I think that it makes a whole lot of sense. We've talked a lot about they're not going to have Deebo. They're going to move on from Deebo. if you think about why they lost 4 games last year, including the biggest game, it was because Debo wasn't there. He was injured from the jump. He probably, a regular season week, he's not out there, and not a chance in hell he's out there. He sacrificed his body second half NFC Championship game for the sake of the team. Got to give it up to him there. But by having him out on the field, and they were still moving him around. I mean, some of the clips that you were just sending, these are clips that have nothing to do with him. But the thing that I noted, and again, we'll get into this a little bit later, is, man, they're going full Debo. The entire game plan was Debo. And that when that focus is there, it becomes very difficult to have anything else, even when you have all of these weapons. So I think they're going to divest from Debo significantly going into this year. A big part of that has to be Brandon Aiyuk. So I think the 49ers have already made that decision. Mike Silver's out here saying that, if Brandon Aiyuk doesn't take this offer, it'll be the Hunger Games between Debo and Aiyuk. Buddy, I like Mike a lot, but there's no way that the San Francisco 49ers would keep Debo Samuel and get rid of Brandon Aiyuk if they have any idea of what they're doing, because one of them is 26 years old and the other one's best football is unquestionably behind him, even if he goes off and has another unbelievable season, as I honestly think he will. But how many more miles are left on the Debo Samuel tires when he has been fucking ghost riding the whip for the last 8 years? And then meanwhile, you get, Brandon Aiyuk, whose best football should still be in front of him. So it's a good question. It's one that the 49ers have been grappling with unquestionably for the past offseason at the very least, if not longer than that. I think there's a pretty clear answer to it. You go with Aiyuk, even if he's not as spectacular.
I'm with you. And I think for the most part, am pretty supportive of Kyle Shanahan. And I think there's a lot of criticism that's sort of imprecise and a little lazy directed at him. But I think that's a very fair criticism because, and I've tried to think about the best way to phrase it.
This is being overly Debo-centric.
But that in a vacuum of having a plan to play around Debo and then not looking at the way the game is playing out and saying, oh, Debo doesn't have it. Let's evolve. And granted, Debo came off the field a few times and he was out of the rotation a little bit more. But like, there wasn't okay, this guy doesn't have it. Let's change how we're running this. Let's funnel traffic elsewhere. Because Aiyuk was able to win, but he would often be the second read. And there were like 3 or 4 throws in the first half. 1 or 2 were low, but like there was one play in the first half where it was a low throw from Brock.
While we're at, I mean, do you want to bust it out? Do you have it available?
I can find it.
Yeah, keep talking through this point. I'll respond and you find it.
Yeah. So there were a bunch of plays in the first half where it was just funneled to Debo. Let's see. We got, this is an Aiyuk, a deep corner for Aiyuk. This is one of the plays we were talking about. As my computer threatens to explode. But Aiyuk gets wide open.
Right.
For a would-be touchdown.
And what we're looking at there is what? I mean, if we pull it back a little bit, this is pretty clear cut. What, cover 4? Where they just miss them? Now I'm making your computer explode. Regardless.
My computer's going to... But this is Ray in at Debo's position.
On that deep dig.
Right. And that's what they throw to Debo. And you basically see L'Jarius Sneed. Aiyuk's over the top of him, beating him. He's beating the brakes off him. And Sneed goes before, and this is like before the ball's even thrown, he starts breaking on Ray. Like, that's why I asked the question of, was there like a cutoff at 30 air yards down the field? I don't know the answer to that, but there were a bunch of times where Aiyuk was wide open for a touchdown and it didn't go to him. And it just felt a lot, especially in the first half, like they were trying to funnel to Debo or the Z, whoever was there.
Yeah.
And I think one thing Kyle gets criticized for fairly, as you pointed out, is like rigidness, like being like, our game plan works. We evaluated it. It's working. And not really coming off of it. And there will be wrinkles, like he'll talk with Brock and he trusts him to do some some stuff at the half. They've
They make pretty
injected
good
stuff.
halftime adjustments, but there is a lack of
Right.
pragmatism in game for sure.
There's a lack of fluidity. There's a lack of like, I don't feel that this is working, or like acknowledging that like Debo's not working. And I know that's oversimplified, and I know
Totally.
a 1% of the amount of football Kyle Shanahan knows. But you
Give
can
yourself some
also
credit there,
recognize
Sparky.
when something's not working without having every understanding
Mhm.
and, understanding the complexity of the offense and the nuances of defense.
You don't have to overthink everything, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, Dumpster Fire Dan, legendary Sicko Hall of Fame Dumpster Fire Dan. Why did they go to Jennings so much instead of Aiyuk? These are the questions you ask in the middle of June, 5 months after the Super Bowl. But Jake, why did they go to Jennings so much instead of Aiyuk? Is it simply because Jennings was playing Z a lot in that game?
I don't think he was playing. I think he was playing mostly his Y spot.
Yeah.
And this was in the second half, which I watched all of the first half and logged it, and I'm still grinding through the second half. But I
Apologies.
think Jennings, just generally, he gets advantageous matchups. And on third down and in key situations, he's going to get an advantageous matchup, and he's usually going to win with physicality, and he's got great hands. Also, one of his catches was that insane Purdy scramble, and Purdy threw it across his body where that was, not planned.
Right.
But I just think Jennings is always, when he's out there as the third wide receiver, he's usually going to get the easiest matchup of the three. So I think that's part of it. And yeah, again, in the slot, you usually get easier releases, especially with McDuffie, following Debo for, I think, basically the entire second half.
Mhm.
So I think that's part of it. Also, Jennings, he's not like a huge separator against man coverage, but he wins enough to be able
Yep.
to make the play.
And
Yeah.
a good
Yeah.
point here by Kawa Chipto. Sorry, my name is Dieter. I shouldn't be making fun of anybody's name, but Jennings is also the hot on a lot of plays.
Correct.
So there is that.
Yeah. Wait, and a lot of free rushers. That's when you watch it back. What I saw, and again, this was obvious during the game. I saw Colton McKivitz getting demolished. Him and Burford on the right side was like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here? And one of these plays,
Not blocking.
Dude, like just getting destroyed by George Karlaftis.
Is this the other one?
Is that the other play? Let's see. I think this is the other play. Yeah.
Okay,
so
this is a
one
Colton
where
McKivitz air. So look at the bottom.
So
of your
this is
screen.
one where they slide left.
Oh,
And
Jesus.
it doesn't really make any sense to me. Why they slid left.
Yeah.
You look at it, and it's basically they get a 4-on-2 on the left side, and then McKivitz and McCaffrey versus 3 on the right. It's basically a 2-on-2 because Willie Gay is just spying on Purdy. But the protection doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But it doesn't matter because McKivitz gets torched one-on-one by Karlaftis, who just drives McCaffrey out of the play too. And then Feliciano doesn't come off. Like, I think there's only 4 guys rushing against 6, and the 49ers can't hold up enough. And if they'd held on for one more second, Aiyuk comes open. Instead, Purdy has to throw deep to his left to Kittle, who doesn't separate, and he wasn't healthy in that game too.
No.
So a lot of free rushers. And then in the second half, I wrote about it. I asked Brendel. They had 2 key protection breakdowns. And honestly, more than anything, that's what killed them. Like, regardless of going to Debo too much, if Purdy had a little bit more time, they win that game.
Well, listen, this is why I never once got on any 49ers fan who was just apoplectic about the team not adding an offensive lineman until Dominic Pooney. Because one, I wasn't a big Pooney guy coming in, generally a Pooney guy in life, but not in the draft in that round. And maybe it has something to do with Kansas, just throwing that out there. But for them to only draft 2 offensive linemen in what I thought was a pretty good offensive lineman draft. I never, ever, as much as we loved Pearsall and as much as we thought that was a great pick and as much as we loved Renardo Green and as much as we thought that was a great pick, I never got on anybody, and I won't get on anybody about the choice that they made to not go with an offensive lineman and to certainly not, add it in free agency, given the cap money that they still have and that they could have spent. This is a team that still has very serious questions on the offensive line. We might like their depth. They might have more human beings who can do the job, but I don't know if any of them, save for 71, can do the job at an extremely high level. And that is going to be a concern. Maybe not the entire year, maybe not even half the year, but as we saw in the Super Bowl against the Kansas City rush, that was very good, but looked way better than it actually was against that competition. If it shows up, it's going to show up in the inopportune times. It's just how that sort of thing works.
And Cadmus, Brendel is the one who calls all the protections on the line. Purdy's not involved in that.
So, okay, there's another thing that I want to pivot off of, because the Aiyuk thing is weird at best and childish at worst, right? Like, there's a bizarro factor. It's kind of meta. It's also very stupid. I can empirically say it's stupid. Klay Thompson's doing somewhat of a similar thing with his social media. He's wiping the dubs off of his Instagram page. Brandon Aiyuk is 26 years old, and Klay is a 34-year-old multimillionaire man who has been in the NBA for 13 years. Like, y'all need to find Jesus is basically my takeaway on this, because this is all just teenage nonsense, and even they should know better at this point. And
the Klay stuff, man, it's making me sad. Like, it's actually making me, like, over these last couple years, he's gotten so insecure, and it's tough because, like, he truly was by far the most likable guy in the league. And it's like he came back and then they won. And like he had this incredible story, and everyone's like, "We love you, Klay. Like, you're awesome," And we're like, everyone's just acknowledging the reality that he's not the same player he was. He's had actually 2 great seasons, still shooting. Well, great. Sorry, statistically great. Like, he's producing. He's still shooting efficiently from 3. But like in the moments where you're like, all right, you don't know if he's going to be out there in the final moments. Like, he's not what he was. He's still, like, defensively, he can't really move the same way. And you shouldn't be able, like, he tore an ACL and Achilles back to back. But like, for everyone to acknowledge that is not to say he's trash. Like, he's still a useful player. He's just getting older. And
well, he was trash against the Sacramento Kings. He went 0 for 10 in that game
for sure.
And then and that's the kicker. Like, it used to be that when Klay had a bad game, it didn't feel bad. Like there wasn't, it was like, wow, Klay went 3 for 16. Well, he still had, 9, 12 points and played good defense. It wasn't a backbreaker. When Klay has a bad game now, it's like, what happened? Well, we lost because Klay was playing for 24 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's a difference. By the way, this is how most players in the NBA operate. This is how most fan bases in the NBA live with their team, where it's like, well, sometimes he's good, sometimes he's bad. Sometimes we win and sometimes we lose. And those two things are pretty correlated a lot of times. The fact of the matter is the Warriors can't really replace him, not just emotionally or on the court. Like, if he goes, yes, there's salary cap relief, which I suppose is a positive, but there's no way to backload somebody into that spot. And with sign-in trades effectively off the table in the modern NBA.
Yeah, at most it's what they can get the full like 12 million or something out of the mid-level, I think.
Yes, they would wait if they waived Chris Paul and had Klay go under. They could get the non-taxpayer mid-level, which is $12 million a year. No, they could. They absolutely could, and it's honestly not even their call anymore, because there is a number for Klay Thompson that they just can't go. They can't go into the second apron. They can't do it. They've NBA's brought in these aprons. The second apron was built for the Golden State Warriors and the Los Angeles Clippers. Every other owner in the league just said, we're sick of them showing us up with spending their money. We're going to create something so ridiculous and so punitive that not even those assholes will go over it. So they can't go over it. And to go over it for Klay Thompson would be just downright stupid. But to swing it back to Klay and Aiyuk, and as they are similar here, I just wrote this up on the Merc. Jurgen Klopp just quit my beloved Liverpool FC, right? He left. He said he was tired. He had to go. Fuck you, Jake. And so
I'm an Everton fan for the 7 of you who know what Everton is.
yeah, and the 7 fans that are left. Maybe you guys can put a bid together to buy your team. Regardless,
Hey, we got somebody. We
yeah.
got Roma's owner, Friedkin. He's coming in. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, Roma's been in great financial shape though. And
Well,
so
yeah, okay.
yeah.
Continue. Power on.
Another podcast. That's Jake and Dieter Talk Footy only on Boo Boo TV. Regardless, Klopp said something very poignant. He's never been fired. He's always left his jobs. He's never been fired. And his argument is it doesn't matter what people say when you show up. It matters what they say when you leave. And for Brandon Aiyuk and Klay Thompson, they need to take that advice right now. Both of them should go out and get their money. I don't think that posturing or being passive aggressive on social media does them any favors when it comes to what people will say when they leave. And I don't think it helps them get any money from the Warriors or the San Francisco 49ers because both parties are multi-billion-dollar industries that are going to look at this and say, if anything, we're giving you less money because it looks like you're shook. It looks like you can't handle these sort of negotiations. We're in your head. And I know it's not as adversarial as that, but like somewhere deep down, someone's like, we got him where we want him. We got him.
Oh, for sure.
So you think about legacy. And for Brandon Aiyuk, legacy is not something he's worried. It's 26 years old. He's only been in the NFL for 4 years. Like legacy is a bit of a stretch for him, but it is something to maybe consider that, hey, I'd like people wearing my jersey. And this is something that doesn't help that cause. Even if he signs the contract, people are going to remember this just as I remember. And I think a lot of people, but not all, remember Debo acting a fool during his contract negotiations. Is it a big deal? No. Is it a little thing? Is it on the Wikipedia page? Kind of. It's kind of on everybody's mental Wikipedia page for these guys. For Klay Thompson, it would be a legitimate tragedy if he wants to keep, if he ramps up this social media thing, because yes, 0 for 10. And 13 years, one of the greatest players, the second greatest Warrior ever. Shouts out to Rick Barry or Wilt Chamberlain, but like Draymond Green, like it's Klay Thompson. And you talk about Steph Curry, who's unquestionably number one. You can't talk about Steph Curry without talking about Klay Thompson. So who's number two? And if he were to, he can't squander all of that because we were there and the memories are there, and that's, you can't take away all of it. But man, he could really shit all over a really nice meal at the very end.
Yeah,
and that's frustrating.
I think about that finals, the last one they had at Oracle.
Yeah.
And it was him. He came out, he tore his ACL. And he comes
back out of the tunnel.
And everyone knows he tore his ACL. We're all sitting there.
No one thought he was playing any further than those 2 free throws.
Everyone's like, oh, his knees disappeared on him. It's gone. Yep. And he comes out and he shoots those 2 free throws. And he like wanted to go back on defense, sort of in denial of what had happened. But like he was like, nah, let me. And like that was like they lost that, and that was a moment, and it all crumbled. And then KD, with the Achilles.
Yeah.
But that moment of him coming out of the tunnel was such a heroic, like genuinely, I still have that saved on my phone. It was poignant. Like it was meaningful. And he had so many of those that if you just start, like, I don't think he's going to be happy to just go. Like, if he goes to Orlando and he wins a title, okay, great. I doubt it. I doubt that's going to happen. I mean, who knows? Because the NBA is a mess, absolute mess, and it feels like it's a toss-up.
The Dallas Mavericks and Boston Celtics just played a 5-game series. I think it's anybody's game at this point.
I'm just saying, I have a hard time thinking he's going to, after signing that, go to Orlando, go, yeah, this is what I want. Like, is he really going to feel fulfilled? And maybe that is. Maybe he does need a change of scenery. And he really
I'm of the argument that actually it might be better for all parties if Klay went somewhere else, because he, just as much as I talk about, hey, legacy and let's maintain this and all that, like he is fighting against the ghosts of Klay Thompson's past. He is constantly being compared to his former self. That's got to be exhausting. I do feel for him in that regard.
That's fair.
But man, that's all, those Klay Thompson's past They're being remembered today for a reason, and you're giving people other reasons to remember. You're overwriting some of that. And you shouldn't overwrite any of that because that's your legacy, that's your history, and that's what people want to remember you by. And yes, in 20 years, it will just be the good stuff. It will all be distilled down to the finest grains. But in the meantime, it's going to kind of suck if people remember you as a guy who kind of burned the bridges on his way out of town or made a scene out of breaking up. Like I never look at the guy who got divorced with a big hullabaloo at the end as like classy. It's always like, dude, you walked away from your wife and family after 13, 15 years, but you're the victim. Like what?
Yeah. And I think honestly, it's just, I think the human brain is very, very bad at not being a prisoner of the moment. Like you can't, like you can look back on all that time, but like you don't feel how you felt the 13 years ago when you saw that shot. And you'll have that emotional attachment to all of that. But if he leaves on a note where he's just like shitting on the Warriors and being like, whatever, I'm done with them.
This meant
like,
nothing to me. You meant nothing to me.
That's the most recent thing you're gonna feel, and that'll be the last part of his legacy with the Warriors. And that's hard.
It will be 0 for 10 and that. I mean, that can overwrite a lot of shit. A lot of good shit. That's tragic.
And it's because in order to remember all that good shit, you have to remember the most recent thing where you're like, let me get past that to try and rather than just having this easy sensation of, oh my God, I grew up watching this guy who's incredible, who's a member of one of the greatest dynasties in NBA history,
right?
And created this franchise that was just wallowing in, the desert of mediocrity, for the longest time.
Yeah. I mean, let me ask you this. Do you think, and this is a bit of a lofty comparison, but we are talking about some of the greatest players ever, so we might as well go to the extreme. Do you think Michael Jordan regrets playing for the Washington Wizards?
Yeah,
I think it's got to be very, I mean, not that he would ever admit, but it's got to be like number one on his list of that was stupid. That was
only for how stupid he looked like in the jersey. Like it was just like
it was wrong.
It
was wrong. And in the moment, I'm sure he thought it was a great idea. Like, oh, I'm a part owner of this team and this is good for business. And I still got some game. And, I scored 50 a couple times and like this. But all it did was take, and this is honestly, it should have been top of mind for him. It takes, 10, 11, 12-year-old Dieter and warps these early foundational memories of Michael Jordan.
Humanizes a god. That's
right.
That's what it does.
Yeah. Yeah. As if he didn't do enough things to humanize himself. He was still at the deity level. And yet he's like, no. I got to knock myself down a step further. And listen, it's not an easy thing to do. It is damn near impossible to walk away from a good thing if you still think you got something left in the tank, especially when this is your life, right? Like, I do think that we dramatically underestimate, particularly for like baseball, hockey, basketball players, guys who it's not just something that you do for half the year and you're kind of like on an oil rig, right? Where you show up for your long shift and then you're just sort of off. Yeah. When you are a baseball player, a basketball player, a hockey player, like you're gone. You're gone all year. You are gone from September to June, if you're lucky. And in baseball, you're gone from early February all the way to October. Like you're gone. And this is, you don't know what town you're in when you wake up a lot of the times. You are completely beholden to the schedule. Your entire day is organized for you in a way by the games and all that shit. It's too many games in too many towns over too short of a period of time that turns into a very long time. And to do that for a decade, 13 years, I mean, having been on beats before, it becomes everything. It's almost like guys who want to go back to prison because they don't know how to function in the real world. Like legitimately, there's a lot of that issue with professional athletes in sort of these long haul sports where it's like, dude, I don't know what to do now that I'm out of this rhythm of my life. And so I do understand and
Yeah.
give deference to the fear that comes along with that when you think I still got plenty more, but like,
Right.
how
And
much is a
there's
legacy worth for Klay Thompson? It can't be that many
and
more million.
and there's also a thing that happens where like most of us have to reckon with our bodies failing us much earlier than professional athletes, where
Yeah.
every kid is like, I'm gonna go pro, like you all have that dream at some point,
Yeah.
and there's one day that happens where you go, oh shit, not even close, not even
Yeah. The
not
universe
even in the
or a
vicinity.
very stern adult tells you it ain't going to happen.
But when you are, and you are in that 1% of 1%, and you like prove yourself to be one of the greatest athletes humankind has ever seen,
Yeah.
and then you have to reckon with that, like going away, that's a really tough position to be in, and that's such a huge part of your identity
Yeah.
that is I can't imagine there's like a good way to deal with it, unless you just start aggressively podcasting and getting
I mean,
into
yeah, like
other
there's part of that.
mediums.
Listen, I think about it a lot too. Like you and I've been in the game significantly longer. There's a day-to-day grind of our jobs. Now, it is not a grind by any realistic standard of grind,
Right.
but there is a mental toll that you pay every day. Every day there's something has to be produced. Every day you got to put something into the machine, and you're trying to get a little bit better every day, all these things. And when I took 2 months off for paternity leave, it was like weird. It was, and I was very busy, but like you do lose a bit of your identity. And luckily I had something else I can funnel it into. And it was really hard to get back on the horse. I just put in my vacation days for the summer, and I'm like trying to minimize it because what am I if I'm not this? This is all I've been for a long time. In periods of unemployment, it's like, what? And you keep working. You're just doing it for way less money or any money. And which is why we're doing this. I'm afraid of what happens after 7 p.m. I don't know. There is something to be said for the identity aspect of things. And again, I personally give a lot of deference to those who have been in the machine for as long as somebody like Klay Thompson has been in the machine, because it's very hard once you're on the other side. It's not like this guy's got other hobbies, or what else does this guy do?
He does.
I guess
He's
that's
got
fair.
the boat. That's the thing about
he might
Klay,
be the most well-adjusted of all of them, and yet he still seems pretty fearful.
That's the thing that's so confounding, is it's like it seems like he's got a lot going on, or maybe he publicizes it as an attempt to show that he's got a lot going on. But he's got he is a really interesting, unique guy, like who has a boat and a cool dog, and is like pretty down to earth when he's not like talking about his basketball career. And so you'd think like he'd handle it better. What I will say just on that last note is, like, at the end of every 49er season, when it like ends, there's like a moment of like pure panic that sets in, where I'm like, oh shit. And where I'm like, once I built a table, like I built a beer dye table, because I was like, I need a hobby until the next thing I can do. And I had that this year, and I was like, okay, I read like Stephen King's book on writing a book and started reading. And I was like, all right, I need to come up with a concrete thing to do every single morning, so I have a routine. And so, like, to center myself, and then start writing every single day, just something, because that, if I do nothing else, I've done that. So like, again, that's just covering the 49ers and having that routine gone. Like, it does something to your brain, where your brain's like, what am I? Who am I? Like, what do I attach myself to as an identity? And if you don't have a concrete answer to that, it's like you're sitting in a void, and you're like, who am I? So anyway.
Well, I mean, that's how we channel so much into our draft coverage. We're just like, now what? I guess we're going to go break down some Baylor TCU film. Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about, Jake? That got very deep at the end there. I
liked it. I liked it. We can do a little book club, talk about Kant next time. For those of you who heard us talking briefly about Everton, we can do a deep dive on their financial situation.
The 777 partners.
Yeah, it'll function sort of. Well, they cleared them, and now they have a somewhat respectable owner. coming in
What
theoretically.
is the name? The fit and proper test. Why is it that no one can seem to pass the Premier League's fit? And that,
I don't
by the
know.
way, low bar, the fit and proper test. They're looking at like
Listen,
Dieter Kurtenbach and calling him a specimen. That's
they've
the fit
got
and
an
proper
owner
test.
who's basically a shell company for a Russian oligarch, and the war happened. It's a whole thing.
Listen, if they want to buy a podcast,
This is a great question. We can
you
answer
want to do
one
actual
49ers
football?
question.
Yeah, let's do that.
Sure. Which rookie you more excited to watch come training camp? For me, it's Jacob Cowing.
Let's call it most. Let's call it most excited to watch in training camp.
I would
49ers throwback
honestly,
says it's Cowing. That's an interesting choice.
honestly, for me, it's Drake Nugent.
Yep.
Because we haven't seen the offensive lineman and defensive lineman with pads, and it's really hard to tell. I also, just on this point, let me pre shit on this, because and here's the thing. I'm not someone to shit on fans, like,
No.
because I think that is super played out, and I think it's super pretentious, and people that look down their nose, like,
Bill
shut
Hicks
up.
once
Like,
said that the crowd is a genius, and if you don't believe what Bill Hicks said, you're an idiot.
right. And so for fans to get excited over players watching at training camp is awesome. Like, I think more fans should be more involved and
They
learn
should
more
do
about
training
the
camp
game.
in the stadium. Absolutely.
For sure. But there is always something hilarious that happens when there's one running back who takes like one play and goes for like 4 yards, and
Against the
then
fifth string
he
defense.
gets cut, and then people go, "No, I loved him." I'm like, I'm sorry, but I watched every single snap he took, all of training camp, all of OTAs.
Yeah.
Were you grinding his ancient college tape? I'm not saying that to shit on fans. I'm saying that happens every offseason, and it cracks me the fuck up because I don't know what people are talking about when that happens. And I'm excited to see who it's going to be.
It's well beyond just like the fifth string running back. I mean, any guy who gets cut, I would say that half of the guys who are going to get cut on cut day. And honestly, if you want a hot take right here and now, the NFL should bring back like the tiered cut dates. I want it down. I want like specific 3-4 days on the calendar where the roster's got to get down to this, and then got to get down to this, and then it's got to get down to this. I thought that was way more interesting.
I agree.
And it's like, listen, it gets way more fun for NFL Network and all that. Isn't that the whole shtick of what the NFL does? Isn't that why it's the best league in the world right now and making all this money? Is because they figured out a way to turn everything into a television event. Cut days, multiple, is a winning idea. You had it, you went away from it. I'm sure there's
somewhat they went away from it, right?
Then they're like, let's not go back. And it's like, what? That's stupid. That was fun. It was interesting. All it did was create a lot of good content and a lot of interest from the fan base, and gave teams better opportunities to bring guys in. That was another thing. So,
what did you say about Danny Gray?
No, yeah, right. So bring back the cut dates, but
yeah, that's an example.
It's beyond just the fifth string running back. It's like, dude, like second half preseason players don't have a big first preseason game in the fourth quarter because you just get anointed by, I will shit on fans here. The fans who are like hardcore on Twitter and just constantly there's a certain contingent of fan influencers and such. And legitimately, I couldn't name names, so don't even ask me to. But there's a certain group of like insiders who I've never seen at a practice, or I've never even seen in the stands at a practice. Like, respect if you want to make some content, you can't get the credential, you still hustling.
Right. Also,
nothing but respect on that.
There's like in the actual league, there's like 5 insiders. Like, like every team's got,
like I know I know like 2 or 3 people inside 49, and I'm not even close to an insider.
No.
Like I can text someone to give me a scoop, and even I'm like, we just get our ass kicked, because you got to be able to play both sides of it, and then you have to be an arbiter of information. And basically, what these insiders have become are proxies, or even like it's like a lien holder for info. they're just this in between, this neutral arbiter, where people can give information. These guys sort it out, and then they divvy it out to other people for more information. And then it's a very lucrative dry cleaning chemical middleman. To shout out Parks and Rec, very lucrative. So don't. And by the way, the Woj Sham sort of contention hasn't bled over to the NFL yet, but it's coming. And
also, those guys aren't. I mean, they're doing well financially, but they're not doing okay.
No. Like if we're well beyond help, these guys, they might even have circled back around and might be well adjusted. I mean,
maybe they found God through reporting. Maybe the third eye opened.
I think they're of the mind that they are God, which is a much more dangerous proposition. And,
that's true.
Not to go full Kantian, but here we are.
We've really come full circle on the philosophizing.
Jake, do you want to plug anything?
The Nuge.
We love the Nuge. We love the Nuge.
I don't really have
if I were to answer, do you want me to answer the question, by the way?
I thought you were going to say the Nuge.
I think we should say Dominic Pooney. I'm not personally excited to see it, but like that is a vitally important rookie to this team, even though he has to jump 2 dudes on the depth chart because he has been told that he's in the mix there and he's not a first or a second round pick.
Yep. I'm most intrigued to watch him. I wouldn't say most excited. Like I need to know what he is.
I mean,
in
you
the
all
49ers
know
game.
Most excited to watch. Who is it? Tell me.
The
Say
Nuge.
it to my face. No,
the
it's
Nuge.
not the Nuge. No,
it's not the Nuge.
Nah, yeah. You can only bring me the SEC's best running back from the University of Missouri so many times.
Yeah.
I'm still in the excitement phase. And honestly, you were mentioning that running back, and I'm like, Jake, I'm glad you're not shitting on these fans because I have crossed over. And if they cut Cody Schrader, I'm going to tear my hair out. He's awesome. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. That is going to be running back is going to be a really fun and kind of stressful scenario at training camp practices. Like wide receiver, it's pretty obvious who makes the team and who doesn't. It's just a question of if number 11 shows up. Yeah,
they've got one spot at wide receiver. Assuming Aiyuk's there, they've got one spot that I think is open if they want to keep 6.
Tight end's a little interesting, but it's kind of just sad. Right guard's kind of the same way. You're like, oh, it could be any of these 3 guys. And it's like, well, what's that say about right guard? I'm with you 100% on the Nuge. I think that there could be a legitimate battle there. And I think Brendel's fine. But man, I don't know what I will do with myself if they cut Cody Schrader. Finally, it's our Giants minute.
I was honestly
see the end of the Giants game.
Yeah, I wanted to close with the Giants. Elliot Ramos is a monster, and it's beautiful to watch him play. I've already forgot the first baseman who went like this and then went someone, please, Tyro,
Trenton
help. And
Brooks.
Tyro went, and Trenton Brooks, and no one called it. And Tyro's like, what are you doing? And Trenton Brooks went, oh, don't look at me. Please don't look at me. No one look at me. Immediately comes in, gets a pitch clock violation. That's tough.
Yeah. Right now, Elliot Ramos. Tyro Estrada's red hot. Right now, Elliot Ramos is got to be 99th percent in barrel. I mean, he's not qualified in any of this, but all of this is just absurd. It is a big old page of red on his StatCast. 93 exit velocity, 109 max. Some of this stuff, man. I mean, the X slugging 550. That's absurd. He's awesome. It will come down a little bit because the strikeout numbers are at 28.5%. That's high, but it's clearly manageable. Yeah. He's managing it. As long as he keeps lacing the ball, they're golden. The defense has been pretty good, all things considered. Imagine if this team gets a first baseman. Don't let him get a first baseman.
Yeah,
And that's
Elliot
our Giants
Ramos is sixth in baseball in hard hit percentage.
Yeah, he's pretty good. And as much, we
He's-
went on Larry's show a couple weeks ago, and he was like, "I can't believe they sent down Matos." And it's like, you got one. Stop being greedy. You got one. They called up a bunch of kids, and like you got one, and it worked. And he's awesome, and he's not going anywhere. And like Brett Wisely is still technically here, so like shut up and take your victory. And that's what Elliot Ramos is right now, a total victory. And frankly, he should be the all-star representative for this team. And they only deserve one. I'm sorry to Logan Webb, but they only deserve one. Because
I know I'm with you. Team. And he's also like, he's just playing with energy. Like that opposite field home run where he's just like no one on the Giants has like a vibe to him. Like that.
He is out there with the full intent of spanking the ball. He's legitimately, he's like Tyro Estrada, because when Tyro's going, it's like, you don't know where this ball's going to go, but it's going to get laced into some sort of a gap. When Tyro's right, it's really fun to watch. Imagine if that guy was bigger and had over the fence power. That's what Elliot Ramos is right now, and he is on
he's great.
Legit heater. And savor it while it lasts. Not say that he's ever going to be a bad player, but boy, you cannot.
Also, Yastrzemski legging one out and an absolute dot.
Yep. Get this.
Also,
Mike Yastrzemski, kind of a decent baseball player.
Also, the fact that they I know there's the new rule with blocking the plate, but that shit it's so fucking stupid. I mean, thank God they actually
lose. No, I would like to see some catchers break their legs again. That's where I'm at. Like, I know, we got to protect the catcher. Fuck you do. These guys are out here dying anyway.
They're padded up. Their knees are already gone.
If they don't want to break their legs, don't get in the way. They don't have to be there. But if they want to stand in there, it's not their fault. It's their fault. I believe this, he got railroaded, this and that. Like, yeah, he did. And you were also standing in front of the plate.
I will take it a step further. I think it should go full MLB blitz where don't even
MLB
let
Hit
them
Fest?
MLB hits, MLB the bigs.
I think it was MLB Hit Fest. Yeah.
Hits? I'm mixing up like 3 different games.
I think they did have 3 different names.
But the Wii one where you could climb the wall and you could hit people. I'm just saying you
Slugfest, MLB Slugfest.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, you shouldn't even need to have the ball coming to you. I think you should just, as a catcher, if you see a guy coming, one of you is going to have. Yeah, like
you're implying that they should they should commit hockey interference, but not have hockey interference as a penalty.
For sure.
Okay.
And like whoever gets concussed loses. Does that make sense?
I believe you just described the National Football League. Just throwing that out.
I did. It's great. Great
Matt
product.
Chapman, 110 miles per hour off the bat and 107 miles per hour off the bat. It is imminent. The Matt Chapman explosion is imminent. I swear.
Yeah, there's when you look at the bat speeds out of the Giants hitters, it's like Chapman, Ramos, and Soler are just in a different echelon. So
Patrick Bailey had 3 hard hit balls tonight too. That's something to know. They've been playing Patrick Bailey third, so
this is good. This is like when I listen to John Miller, and it's sort of. I was literally going to say, I only watch football, so bye. We're lulling it's late. It's late. We're lulling you to sleep. A little bit of Giants baseball.
Adios.
Genuinely, I've said this many times.
This is your favorite take.
The best way to take a nap, eyes here. The best way to take a nap in the entire world. Middle of the afternoon, have 1.5 Modelo's.
1.5.
Like leave
very
your
specific
sliding
dosage.
glass. Yeah, sliding glass door open if you got one. It's like a 70-degree day. You got John Miller playing on the radio or your TV, and you just it's the 4th inning. You fall asleep. You've missed nothing. You wake up. It's inning number 6. You're like,
when did Eric Miller come in?
Yeah.
What's Randy Rodriguez doing here?
Yeah, and nothing's changed. It's the best way to sleep in the entire world.
Yeah, I would like to note that they have tossed out Jordan Hicks multiple times this season when Jordan Hicks should not have been on the mound. Like, Jordan Hicks is a type 1 diabetic. They threw him out here after he had been sick all week in 95-degree heat. And they're like, you got to do it. Like, we don't have a choice. he was puking up a storm before his start against Colorado a couple weeks back, and they're like, "We've run out of starting pitchers, Jordan. You got to go out there and just gut it out." So as much as I want to go in on Jordan Hicks kind of sucking as of late, and he didn't. I mean, he gave up no runs today, but like everything was down across the board. It was just down. I also got to give the dude mad props because the San Francisco Giants are trying, and I mean this, like this is an empirical. They're trying to kill him. They're trying to kill him. They don't want to see years 2 and 3 of that contract. They are trying to kill him. And, God bless him. He's just fighting through some nonsense.
I gotta say, like, a lot of injuries, a lot of just random weird stuff so far. But like, they're trying to be interesting. I gotta give them a little bit of credit with a lot of guys who aren't very interesting. Like, they're trying.
Baseball.
It's June. It's June, and they've got a lot of guys that are hurt. And interesting game tonight.
Yeah,
7-6 win. I'll take it.
Yeah, the Giants do need to move on from BA. That's fair. Eric Schmidt. Sad, but the 49ers need to move on from BA. Let's end with this. Let's bring it back to football before we get out of here. I think everybody's being a bit rash because Brandon Aiyuk went on TikTok, which is a sad sentence. Brandon Aiyuk goes on TikTok and is like, they won't pay me enough money. And then everyone's like, you got to get rid of him. Let me know. Yeah. I kind of hope that the 49ers do it just so that everyone in week 3 can be like, why didn't you sign Aiyuk? We could really use him right now. That's my thought.
Yeah, they don't have to do anything. And I still firmly believe they will find an agreement. I'm going to say it's going to come in less than Amon-Ra St. Brown with a lot more fully guaranteed money.
Right.
That's my guess.
Are you of the mindset that because Aiyuk put out this video today, I was very much of Ayuk's going to push this thing to the limit. And then he puts out this video and I go, oh boy, he's going to cave early. I think it actually gets done. I'm back on it gets done fairly soon.
Yeah. It's not a position of confidence to be calling your best friend. I don't know if he's best friend, but calling one of your close friends.
What if they don't even know each other?
And then posting it on TikTok where you're like, they don't want me, man. You're not operating from a position of strength.
Random strangers on the internet. Do you love me? Do you want to pay me $30 million a year?
It's like,
I'm sure he got some more followers today though, which is something he desperately needs.
It's just
by the way, if you want to add more followers to this program, please do. You could subscribe and click that. That'd be great.
And if you want to hear us talk other incredible topics like Everton Football Club, I'm going to start doing an ASMR to just lull people out of this thing. Go
to sleep. All right, bye.